let's start up here. So when I moved here about 20 years ago, the whole place, and is about 8 acres approximately, was horse fenced with barbed wire horse fencing. And the T-posts were this tall, and then you have these strands of barbed wire. So the new fencing that we did not happen overnight, and it did not even happen in the same year. It took years. I have inner fencing and outer fencing. And I encourage you guys, if it seems overwhelming to fence your new place or your new homestead, to just pick an inner section to fence around your house, around your animals. I use a runway system, which is the best thing we've ever done with fencing. So my animals can come and go from the house. The livestock guardian dogs can come and go from the house. And now we call it our inner fencing because we have the outer fencing. So this is not like a recipe for what you need to do. This is just what I did with my daughter. We put in these 7-foot T-posts, and I'll show you the pounder that I use. It's actually very easy and very fast. For high sections, you may need to bring a cart or something, piece of wood to stand on. And basically, you can see this is how tall that fencing was. Pounded in half a mile of these things for our land. And then the fencing, most of the outer fencing here is 2 rolls of this wire here. I actually don't know what it's called, but it has little squares. So it's a bottom row and a top row. And also what you're seeing here is what I call cattle panels. This was done in one day. It goes all the way down to our barn. And the reason this one section has cattle panels is because there were some cows on the other side of this and horses, and it broke the bottom barbed wire, and I needed something quick and fast to just secure that because it was just flimsy. Even I was worried even when I put this on that it was too flimsy. So that's why this section does have big panels. I think they're about 16 feet tall. I did get them all home in my flatbed trailer. And then Maria and I, in that one day, zip tied them up with zip ties. These are really handy until you can go back and wire them and use clips. Okay, for the what I call cattle panels, we used wire. I'll also show you how I put on clips, which is what we did for this kind of rolled wire. All right, so basically our whole perimeter fencing, that's what it is. One thing about fencing is I feel like for me and our place, fencing is freedom. Because once you have good fencing, you can feel safe about letting your animals out and not having to worry about them. But another thing about fencing, hi Solomon, is that you gotta check it. I check it often, not like every day, but I do check it. And there are things that you have to maybe repair and change. And this is one section, okay? We have had major snow this past year, and Solomon actually was our teammate up here a lot when we had snow covering this fence. So Maria and I did a lot of shoveling a lot this year of snowdrifts that literally covered, or it came up to here on this section of fencing. And also the weight over the years of snowdrifts causes these fences, cause this section here to kind of go in. So I did some bandage work that doesn't look the best the last couple of years, like putting another T-post. Let's see, where's one? Can you find one that kind of I just shove it in and just pushed it back? I guess that's one right there. You can see how the original fencing is pushing in, and that is just the weight of the snowdrifts that we had year after year. So this year, my plan for this section that gets the problem snowdrifts is to put in 12-foot posts from Fireproof Fencing. I highly recommend them if you're in the Sheridan area. I'm going to buy 12-foot posts to put up here and pound them in 4 feet. So that will give me, if I'm doing my math right, 8 feet instead of 6-foot fencing. So we'll get another 2 feet, and then we'll just add some fencing on the top, rolled wire fencing. And maybe we won't have to shovel as much. have really hard snowdrifts like we had, we could literally walk on top the snowdrifts, and so our animals could too, especially lighter ones like dogs and alpacas. So we couldn't let them out. We kept, and I'm really thankful for interfencing during those times, because we kept them in interfencing until we could shovel it out. So yeah, we're gonna be working on that this year. What are you doing, David? What are you doing upside down like that? One of my favorite things about our setup is the runway system. So what we used, and this has been up for several years, I could probably tamp it this time of year when the ground is wet. You can make them level again, but we used wooden treated posts and our 7-foot T-post, and then we used this welded wire fencing, which is not as strong as woven wire, and I'll show you the woven wire. But for the interfencing, I used a little bit cheaper stuff. And what I love about the runway system is that the animals can come and go as they like. I can shut the door to keep alpacas up there for the night, but that little door right there means guardians and young alpacas like crias are free to come and go from the house whenever they want to. And we like to live with the animals. I used to always think that I wanted a barn dominium. That's where one side is for the humans, and then you live under the same roof basically with your animals. But you know, you can make things work. You can make a lifestyle work with what you have. And actually now I love how we have it. We have alpacas showing up at the door for Christmas, for really any time they want to, because we have the runway system. And I can open the gate too when I want them to be able to come and go as they want. So yeah, it's basically this big, and Maria and I purposefully made it funnel in shorter if we had to catch an alpaca that wasn't real catchable, which we really don't have any of those too much anymore. But let's say we needed to catch one for shearing and we couldn't catch them, we run them down here and it gets very narrow. As you can see, it's narrowing in. And then we have these gates, and I used railroad ties with hinges on the gates, and then it gets this narrow, so, and we can shut that gate. And you know, gates too help so much, because you might not want something going a certain way or whatever. You just shut the gates or open the gates. And each night we shut all the gates so that all our animals are in interfencing at night. We don't need the horses and alpacas out there at night. We don't need the guardian dogs having to be out that far at night. I love interfencing. What are you doing? Are you getting a little higher? My babies. So in our front yard, we used woven wire fencing, which is a lot stronger, and it's also a lot heavier and harder to work with because it's heavier. But it's 6-foot fencing, and I love railroad ties, especially oak railroad ties. If you're gonna put railroad ties in the ground, it's better to put oak than pine, because oak will last for many, many years. And then I just used, call them staples, to staple it into the railroad ties. And for this side of our yard, we also like to stack our firewood against it. So we're actually in the middle of getting firewood right now. So we're bringing up some wood. Last year's wood, we let it season a year on the fence, and then this is wood we just got this last week. We're in the process of doing that. And of course, there is the tree fencing, because once you get trees, that's a really bad example. This is the worst example one. Let's go to a better example. This one we hope makes it. Okay, so this is a better example. This is one of our new poplar trees, and then I just used the cheaper woven wire fencing, because this is to keep animals from eating it and alpacas jumping against it to brush themselves off. And then I just get in it like that to check the moisture and to water it. So yeah, you just keep fencing. What I like about these littler squares, and that's what I use in the front yard, is that chickens can't get out. So our chickens are safe when they're in the front yard, and like cats from outside, neighbor cats, can't get in. It just makes life a lot easier. And this is Barnabas. If you don't know who Barnabas is, check out our previous video about our rescue dog, Barnabas. And there's Tacoma, our senior dog. Come on in, Tacoma. We're up at the cabin on the hill. I just wanted to see if you could hear me in the wind, so I was listening to part of the video. But something I want to show you also is trees that we put in. And it's not fencing, but I think a lot of us have some of the same issues, and we want to have privacy. We put in 14 trees this year, counting the fall, and plus a bunch of lilac bushes and native plants like choke cherries and buffalo berries and June berries, also called service berries, and they can grow like 12 to 14 feet tall. And I can't tell you how excited I am about trees. They just make me so happy. We also want to keep our place open because it's Wyoming and we love the openness, so we're just putting them in areas to block out things. So I'll show you the trees on the way down, and we want some evergreens so they'll be up even when the leaves go down. So we have blue spruces and Rocky Mountain junipers, poplars, which are one of the fastest growing trees. It's the cottonless kind without cotton, and they're supposed to be able to grow like 6 feet a year. We just put in a crabapple tree, some apple trees, and I think those are our main trees so far. And the big thing with trees is you have to commit to water them. And we're in dryland country, which is basically sagebrush country, called like an upside down forest because roots go down real far to get water. So we committed to the first year, we're gonna have to water these trees a lot. But then this year we got all this rain. So we've collected over 15 gallons of water that we're keeping on hand, that we just are keeping filled with all this rain that we're collecting off the roof. And we're bucketing it to the trees. We're checking them with the moisture reader. And so we've been given a real big blessing this year with putting in young trees and getting water and lots of rain when days we don't have to water them. So once they get established, we shouldn't have to water them. So we'll show you the trees. This is more of our side yard woven wire fencing. And then of course when people hear you're fencing, they're like, hey, I have fences for you. And we did a whole bunch of side yard fencing of this kind of fencing to keep animals out of the privacy bushes and trees we're growing. This is some lilacs, June berries, and we got choke cherries. Here's a wild plum. But anyways, these are, I think they're called privacy shields that we got, and they're so easy to put up. Once you have fencing, you just zip tie them up. They lasted through the whole winter. Use harder zip ties, then they will last you a lot longer. Otherwise, you're gonna have to keep replacing your zip ties. You know, every season maybe if you don't use a hard kind. But this is really cheap and easy way just to get privacy or shade. So yeah, this goes on for a while. What I like about this kind of fencing, and I got some mountain trees, I'm gonna try it, is this is just a post with holes in it, and then this fencing just fits in it. So this does not have any screws or any nails. And I just think that's really cool. I like that. And again, this fencing is just to keep out our animals from eating our baby bushes and trees. This, I like making gate. When you need a cheap gate real fast, you can use one of these cattle panels and put like staples in them, and you got yourself a gate, a cheap gate. A Rocky Mountain juniper, another one. A blue spruce. They think we're opening the gate to let them out front. But we're not right now, guys. Oh, they're coming through our forest. Poplar. Another poplar. Luna, there you go. Hi, girl. A crabapple. I'm really excited about this one. big already. And we're excited to make things from the crab apples. This is one of our full-grown and still growing chokecherry trees that just came up naturally here. And when I moved here years ago, it was about like that big. Happens to be on the leach line, so it gets water from the house, and it just grew. That's what we're growing along the other side of the house. But can you imagine this around your border? It's a privacy fence in itself. So if you have your real secure fencing, and then this, that just gives you the height without having to build a 20-foot fence into the air. Also, our guardians love this area because the afternoon sun is over there in the summer, and they like to lay here and they can look out and watch all the alpacas. Right now, today is not a hot day, so they're not seeking out shade, but when they do, this is one of their favorite spots. And mine too. I've brought my spinning wheel here and sat here and spun yarn. For horse fencing, after years of fixing horse fencing because they'll back up against it and rub their butts against it and stuff, we've done so many different fencing. Now I absolutely love these economy panels, and I got these at Tractor Supply, but you can get different kinds. I happen to get the cheapest economy panel. They're portable. You stick that in there. I like to put a T-post there so they can't move it. I eventually want to do the whole horse section in these economy panels because I just love me some economy panels. They're so easy and they don't break. I mean, they're probably gonna break or something after many, many years, but not every season where you're screwing in new wood and stuff. So when I adopted Lexi, the Mustang, I got economy panels, and yes, we are being overtaken with weeds at the moment, so this is real life. I'm not gonna hide it. We gotta get some of these weeds down. But I love these economy panels. One of the things I like about these gates is, don't try this at home unless you think you should. Ta-da! When I adopted Lexi, the Mustang, she was an adult and untouched, so the government requires, I think it's 6-foot fencing, and these are not 6 foot, but they did accept that I had 8-foot T-posts pounded down, and I added fencing on the top. And then as soon as she was tamed, which was like overnight, I was able to take that down. But that's how I did that. One thing about fencing is I hear a lot, well, I don't have that kind of money to do all that fencing, but remember, just fence in a little section at first. That's exactly what I did with when we first started out with alpacas. I just fenced in the backyard and then a little runway, and I fenced in the alpacas. You do not have to do this overnight. The outer fencing came later. Somebody's behind me, aren't they? I feel like I'm being watched. Hi guys. This is a fence I just made like about a week ago, and I put in railroad ties as the post. These are 8.5-foot railroad ties. I put them down about 2.5 to 3 feet. And these are the planks that I milled from mountain wood that I got in the mountains from wind blown down trees, standing dead trees. I get a permit for that. And I use the Granberg International Alaskan small log chainsaw mill for these. And I really enjoy doing this. I may make a lot more fencing of this and take down the privacy shields. Haven't decided. Really enjoy this. And that week that I made this, I happened to get the truck oil changed. So I just said, can I have my oil back? And they're like, sure. And I just put that on top of on top of there as a preservative. And I kind of ran out, so I have to get more. But as you can see, that side, I did the whole thing. And this side, I still need to get more of that. And then I'll show you the other side, and I have the woven wire fencing on the other side because I like to be really safe. I don't want to have to worry about my dogs. I don't want to have to worry that wind or something took a plank down and somebody got out. So that's why I have that on the other side. I feel like they protect us. They would give their lives for us, and I need to do all I can to protect them. I think, like, I love them, and love is an action verb. It's an action word. So that's what I do to show I love them. That's one of the things. I keep them safe. This is the other side of the chainsaw fence. And I just used what I had at the time. I had these 2x4s. I also could make 2x4s from a chainsaw mill, and I probably will do that for some of the other fencing. And I kind of liked how it's a jagged look. These are actually the same size, and I made them the size that will fit in the back of my truck so I could bring the logs home and work on them at home. So that's why they're that size. The ground kind of changes. That's why they're varying heights at the top. And I keep them off the ground about that much so that they weather better. And I also did this before winter over here. And this one I cut off the top because I thought it has to be so neat looking. And now I kind of wish I didn't. So for the rest, I'm just going to let it be natural. So this is our front yard gate. And I just put some cattle panels up and some fencing on the bottom to keep neighbor cats and stuff out. And these signs I got somewhere on eBay quite a while ago, and I put them around our property, and that's to protect our dogs. I don't need somebody coming here putting their hands in wanting to pet them. My dogs are all very welcoming of people when I'm welcoming of people. If I'm not welcoming of people, they're not going to let you in either. So that's to protect them, and I highly recommend that. And we also lock our gate. It's not locked right now because we're on the outside of it, but I don't want people coming in without me inviting them in. I'm going to show you how to put these clips on. And I recommend wearing gloves definitely when you're fencing, especially if you're doing a lot of fencing, because you're going to get blisters and calluses. Boy, this has been on. This here has been on for several years. So this is when we're doing fencing, like I was saying before, I use zip ties to hold my fencing up until I can go back and put these on. And let me show you how I put these clips on. So the clips look like this, and you just hook it around there. This is how I do it, at least. I take my fencing pliers, I bend them back like that, and then I come around this side and I bend it up. And that's it. And then for good measure, I put that down. So I'm going to show you how you put in T-posts. Many of you probably already know this, but I'm just going to show you how this is a 7-foot T-post. You can get many sizes of T-posts, and then you have to, of course, realize that once you put it down, you're going to have like 6 foot. So once you put it down a foot, if you're putting in T-posts, you might want to wear some kind of ear protection because it can be a little bit loud, especially if you're doing a lot of it. If you're doing a lot of fencing in one day. This is a pounder, and you put it, and you can put it on the top like that. You don't have to try to reach it over the top. Just put it where you want, the bottom, and then step back, put it on. And I do not need a T-post here, but I'm just going to show you anyways how I would do it. And then right about here, you may want to use your level, depending how exact you want to be. I'm not going to pound it all the way out because I'm just going to have to pull it out, but I would cover this a little bit beyond this right there. And that's it. Very simple. It goes in very fast, especially if the ground is wet. If you use your legs, I find I can get posts out a lot easier. All right, so next let's go look at the post hole digger that you can use when you're putting in wooden posts. This is a post hole digger. You might want to wear boots or steel toe boots if you're doing a lot of fencing. I'm just going to show you basically how it works. And this is something you use if you're digging a hole to put like a wooden post in, and then you'll need hammer and staples and fencing to secure the metal fencing to the wooden post. But this is how this works. Saves a lot of time. When it's wet, sometimes the soil doesn't want to come off, especially if you have clay soil. Well, there are times I just have to take it off like that. But basically, the nice thing about this is it can make you a small narrow hole, which is what you will need depending on how big your post is. If you use the shovel, you're gonna eventually have to make your hole so big just to get a low post in, because that's just the nature of like how a shovel works. But with this, it's nice and narrow. You can make a very deep post, maybe up to about like here, just by using this, without having to make it extra wide. And then you have to imagine here, because I'm not gonna put a post in right now, is put your post in, and then you can get your level to make sure it's straight, and then you want to tamp the post in with the extra soil that you pulled out. You want to put it around the post and tamp it in. And you may want to even tamp it again the next year or after a rain. You can still straighten posts out, even if they're down like 3 feet. You can tamp them again. So this is a tamping bar. I also use it as a pry bar. If I have to get something out of the ground, you can use this side and pry things out. So yeah, these are the tools of the trade. And there's one other thing. Our dogs have never tried to dig out under or gone over, but you could use electric fencing if you need to. I've never had to over the top. You could also bury your fencing into the ground if you have dogs that are digging under, or you have incoming predators. You can also use rebar on the bottom. That is pretty cheap and you can get it at Home Depot. So yeah, I don't do it because it hasn't been a problem here. Thank you guys for watching, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit the bell if you'd like to be notified of more videos. Right, Solomon? Good boy.